Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Today is International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence against Women. It's quite crucial for us to have this conversation because it has called for serious concern, the issue of sexual violence globally. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women have been subjected to physical or sexual violence globally. How did we get to this level, and what should be the narrative in curtailing this kind of development globally? Let's begin our business of shaping policy in this regard by bringing in our guest analyst. We're being joined by Dr. Bright Oniovokukor, who is also the project director, Indomitable Youths Organization. Glad to have you join us, Dr. Bright.
Good morning, Kevin.
All right, let's provide background to this conversation by making reference to the estimated statistics released by the World Health Organization that 1 in 3 women are, at one point or the other, have been subjected to physical or sexual violence. How do you react to this kind of reference? And on a day like this, how do we set a narrative in drawing attention to the need to eliminate sexual violence against women? Talk to us.
Okay, well, good morning, every one of us, and good morning, viewers. Today is the National Day to eliminate sexual violence, specifically in conflicts, and not only to women. We know that women are more vulnerable compared to the men, but the statistics are clear because due to the vulnerability of the women, they face so much challenges compared to the men. But that does not mean that we don't have men and boys who also face some of this sexual violence. It's all over, and sometimes where we kind of maybe just want to limit it to some certain environment, maybe getting the narrative wrong. And even with the statistics, yes, it could be actually shocking considering the fact that many of those who are survivors or victims of sexual violence, they don't have the opportunity to actually speak out in terms of that. So it's something that every one of us need to join our hands to see how we can work against to put an end to it.
Root of this problem. Let's identify, or I would like you to identify, what are the critical issues or factors fueling this kind of rise in violence or sexual violence, whether against women or men. In recent times, it has been on the increase. What are these critical issues fueling this kind of increase when it comes to sexual violence?
Okay, the truth of the matter is when you look at violence generally, it's more of you have the strong trying to do something against the weak in this situation. So the strong at any point in time could be the man, could be the woman, but it's just the strong against the weak. And when there are conflicts, probably we have a disagreement over some things that we've not been able to discuss out. So some people resort to violence as a means of solving some of those issues. So these are some of the factors fueling it. And from the way the society is, anything can actually stir up violence. Anything can actually stir up violence. Economic issues can stir up violence. Cultural issues can stir up violence. Religious issues can stir up violence. And even our political divide can also stir up violence. Our religion can stir up violence. In fact, there are some things that you may not even pay attention to that appears to be very, very minute. They can actually stir up violence. However, when they start, the consequence, or rather the effect of what comes after it, is what we cannot actually determine. Like we always have the saying, you can know the origin of trouble, you may not be able to determine where it is going to end. So a whole lot of things actually fuel violence. Somebody does a job for you and maybe you don't even pay the person the way you should pay the person. it could stir up violence. The last speaker was talking about minimum wage and some other things. These are things that can actually stir up. So a whole lot of things, the list of things that can spur violence are numerous and inexhaustive.
All right, let's look at the implication of this for our society. If sexual violence has been on the increase, what will be the impact of the psychological impact, the moral impact on the society? And also, given the fact that there are laws that are supposed to curtail this kind of practice, what's wrong with the issue of regulation to deter people who engage in the issue of sexual violence? I would like you to combine these varieties.
Okay, but when you look at violence, in fact, sexual violence, it's something that has to do with maybe the mindset of the perpetrator and the other person at the receiving end. Now, there are some things that we could term as sexual violence, but the survivor or the victim may not see it in that light. And because of that, they would not want to say anything about it. They wouldn't want to talk about it. The culture of silence is something that remains a challenge. Let's take, for example, a religious leader rapes a lady. The members of that group wouldn't want to take the religious leader to the cleaner. Rather, they want to blame the lady, that the lady is the one that either seduced the religious leader or dressed inappropriately or positioned herself in a position that the religious leader would take advantage of him or her, So when you see some of all those factors growing in our environment, it affects the psychology of that person. It kind of brings some of them down to some bring down their low self-esteem, because some of these perpetrators, they are either, or they perceive themselves in a higher position compared to the victim. And so they feel they can do whatever thing they want to do and get away with it. And because the victim actually look at it, or the survivor actually look at it and see that there is nothing they can do to this particular person, they just have to keep quiet. Let's say, for example, you ask them to go report at the police station, because they feel that they may not get justice. They would not want to go to the police station because of the bureaucracy that may go through. They may not want to go to the police station because they don't have the right information. They may not want to go to the police station. Now, talking about the laws are there, but like it's already been said, the laws cannot just apply itself. When we talk about, there are laws against sexual violence, like the VAP law. The VAP law is there to kind of address the issue of sexual violence. But the truth of the matter is this. Now, if somebody is raped, for example, the rapist did not commit offense against that victim or the survivor. The rapist has committed an offense against the state. And the survivor will play the role of a witness in that case. But the situation is this: when the survivor cannot testify against that perpetrator of that act, what happens? The judge cannot just wake up and pass judgment against or apply the prescribed sanction against that person. There has to be a witness. The challenge we're having today is that our laws are not tested enough. Our laws are not tested enough. A whole lot of persons have reasons to keep quiet more than they can actually speak. So if somebody is raped, for example, and the issue passes through normal course, and speedily the perpetrator is sentenced or is dealt with or is punished according to the prescription of the law, it will serve as deterrent to so many other people. But in our society today, it appears that some persons are above the law, and the survivor does not even have protection, because sometimes when some of those things happen, you see them having pressure from religious body, pressure from culture, pressure from family, and some of those things kind of make them not wanting to go and bear witness against the rapist. And if the rapist will appear in court and there's nobody to testify against that rapist, what happens? The judge will have no option than to let that rapist go, because most of them would definitely plead that they are not guilty. So the laws are there, but the laws have not been tested enough to give confidence to the people, to make the people feel that, oh, we can rely on this law, we can actually get this justice. Sometimes some of us, we have to go out of our way to talk to these persons on the need. Yes, it will help their mental well-being, but however, it will also help some other persons who are at the verge of being victim to those perpetrators. So the laws are there, but they've not been tested enough. And programs like this would help people to know that there are laws that can actually help them when the need arises, but they just need to make themselves available for the law to be properly tested.
All right, now let's address one critical issue which has to do with the stigma attached to sexual violence. Now, a lot of the victims don't speak up or speak out because they feel they will be stigmatized, and given the behavior in the society, how much of setback has this caused for the victims, and how do we address this issue of stigma for victims who can speak up and, most importantly, even get justice? They always have the sense of, okay, not being heard, and then presenting their cases because of that they would rather prefer to keep quiet. I'm looking at the stigma. So how do we address this issue of stigma being attached to sexual violence?
Well, it is a big challenge, because when we look at issues of witness compromise, these are some of the things that could actually lead to it. Like I mentioned just now, a religious leader, I don't want to be specific about any particular set per se, a religious leader sexually violates a member. It could be a male, it could be a female. Now, instead of the society to look at that act that that man or woman has committed against that person, but they start bringing up sentiments. Oh, how did she dress? What was she wearing? What did she go and do at that point in time? Have they not been doing it before? They start bringing up so many sentiments. And the person who has been sexually violated, like I said, many of them, the people who perpetrate that act, perceive themselves as being better placed, being more resourceful, being wealthier, economically stable, being more influential than these people, than their prey, So that person who first and foremost has been brought down by that person is now also faced with questions he or she cannot answer, which brings blames on that person. So that creates the stigma. If, for example, in a community, a lady is raped, and instead of people to say, okay, let's join hands to see how we can deal with that perpetrator of that act, they start asking the lady a question that she cannot answer. Why did you dress like this? What were you doing at that point in time? So these are things that can actually bring down the morale of this person. And if this person has suffered that to the view of other members of the community and nothing happened, if their own case happened, they would rather want to keep quiet than want to talk about it. It's actually very, very challenging. I had a case that a lady reported that a friend harassed her. Getting to the police station, it was shocking when one of the police was there. Now, boyfriend and girlfriend matter. What does that one mean, boyfriend and girlfriend issue? We keep saying, but people don't want to even take it because of cultural and religious belief. A wife can complain that the husband raped her. And people don't want to believe that the husband can rape the wife. What has to do with rape? Consent. If consent is not given, whatever thing that you have done is against the will of that person. and that is also against the law. So it's applicable to even husband and wife who are legally married, not to talk of people who are maybe they are just cohabiting or they are just dating. It's a matter of concept, but because of the sentiment around it, people don't want to look at it. People don't want to see it. Sometimes they even ask, is this your first time? Did you not enjoy it? It's challenging. We even had some time ago of a man who molested another male, some boys of some tender younger age. You know, some of the questions that they are asking kind of make the people not wanting to speak out. But that particular case, it was because one of them summoned courage and he spoke out. Others started speaking out. You know, like you said, 1 in 3. Yes, but majority of them still don't want to speak out because they don't know what the society, the throwback, the backlash that will come from the society. So the truth of the matter is, it's my responsibility, it's your responsibility, it's a collective responsibility of every one of us to see that we address this. Some persons are not interested in the issue of sexual violence until their own person is affected. They now want to come and start asking questions, oh, what can we do about it? Oh, my person was sexually violated. What are the available laws? What are the process? But when others were being violated, what role did you play? We must not wait for it to get to our doorstep before we add our voice to it. It's our collective responsibility. We should throw certain
Right. Dr. Bright is trying to address the issue of stigma, which is associated with sexual violence. It's often a common practice here where people or victims who suffer this violence don't always like to speak up because of the reaction from the society. And he's trying to give us a picture of what the idea should look like to ensure that everybody comes on board to give those victims support. Why this practice can be eliminated if the society can be matured enough, can be understanding and show sympathy enough for victims to be able to speak up. And also having the right framework to achieve this could be that we have the right centers to achieve this. Let's get back to Dr. Bright now. Sorry about that internet glitch, but let's get back to you. You were addressing some issue, but I would love you to talk about. There was something you raised earlier, which has to do with the fact that when you talk about sexual violence, the picture that comes to mind has to do with women. But it's a given fact that also men are also victims. But you often realize that most men don't speak out, given the fact that in our society there's this perception that a man has to stay strong, mustn't have to display emotions. But they're also victims. How do we address this in a situation whereby we create a framework for them to be able to speak up? The issue of ego also comes in, and perhaps the issue of culture as regards men not voicing out when they are being violated. Talk to us. How do we address this trend?
the men are perceived to be strong, and so they should not cry, they should not speak out. But that does not mean that they don't face it. You know, first and foremost, we also need to start from the very basic aspect of it. You know, some of these violations are not physical, some of them are verbal. You know, you could use body language to exhibit some of all this violence. So, and when you look at the law didn't actually specify women, it talked about persons. So if one man feels he's stronger than another man, he can actually want to oppress that man. And if a woman also feels she is stronger than the man, she can also want to oppress that particular man. It's a challenge in our society, and we must encourage men to speak up because many men have gone into depression. They've gone into, in fact, some of them have even committed suicide because of this, because they cannot speak out, yet they take
Well. We will. All right. We'll get back to Dr. Bright. He was actually trying to address the stigma attached to men speaking out when it comes to the issue of sexual violence. It's often a practice in our society because a man is expected, given the perception of the society, to stay strong, not to display emotion, because what is believed for you to be a man is that you are showing your strength, and being masculine is not to also show that you are going through hard times. But the fact is, men also have emotions. They are human beings, and it's important to create a narrative for them to be able to open up. And Dr. Bright was trying to address that stigma and that behavior in our society to ensure that we create the right framework for men. He also talked about the emphasis as regards the law, not just about women or men, but the law. According to the law is being referred to as persons. So it's not about gender. So it means whether a man or a woman, you can seek justice. Let's get back to Dr. Bright for him to conclude his thought in this regard. Glad to know you're still there, Dr. Bright. All right. While we wait for Dr. Bright, we're still looking at the elimination of sexual violence in Nigeria. A day like this is created by the United Nations to ensure that the conversation starts in order to draw awareness to the need to eliminate sexual violence in conflict, not just against women, but also against men. According to statistics provided by the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women, one way or the other, have engaged in sexual or physical violence. Let's get back to Dr. Bright. I want to believe he's ready for us now.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I was talking about the men, they are humans. In fact, I feel they feel more pain more because when you even go outside, if you see a woman being oppressed or molested, there's tendency for you to want to say, okay, let me join or let me try to find out the reason behind the woman. But for the man, like I used to tell some people, I said, just look at this scenario. A woman is standing on the road, and another man is pulling her. Even if the man is the husband of that woman, and he's kind of dragging her or calling her to say, let's go. And the woman said, I am not interested. I don't want to go with you. People will join the woman and tell the man, please, Oga, allow this woman be. She is not interested. Even if the man is saying, she's my wife, oh, they'll tell you, oh God, please allow the woman be. But let's turn the table around. Let it be that a man is standing and a woman is dragging the man. People will say, oh, follow, follow, follow. They wouldn't want to say anything. So the men suffer a lot, and they suffer that in silence. They suffer that in silence. Good enough, the women are perceived as being more vulnerable, and we encourage them to speak out. But we also know that the men need to speak out more, because the women may face some physical assault that you may just see. Maybe you see a mark on their face, or you see a scar, or you see maybe a bruise or something that could say, oh, something has happened to you. But for the men, they are more of mental torture. There are more psychological challenges. They can't speak out. It becomes so painful, and we know what that one can do, or what mental health can actually do, creating a lot of anxiety, and anxiety not even addressed can, on the long run, tilt towards depression, and before you know it, the man could be considering suicide, considering that he may look at himself and feel, oh, I think I'm worthless. I can't do what other men are doing. I can't stand up against other men. I think I'm worthless, I'm useless or something. And the man will just go into each other. Before you know it, he has done what is unthinkable. So it's actually a challenge. The men also suffer this violence.
That's interesting. Now, I would like us to address the issue of getting justice. You observe that most victims, they don't get justice, perhaps due to lack of evidence or the courage to also pursue this case. Now, you've handled several cases, or you've followed several cases. I would like you to identify some of the common mistakes being made by victims in the process of seeking justice.
Okay, well, in terms of that, first, when there is the society needs to know the various steps that are supposed to be followed. Because when you get to the court and you cannot prove, because the judge will always say, proving beyond reasonable doubt, and you cannot prove what you have, it becomes a challenge. First, we don't need to take laws into our hand. We don't encourage jungle justice, and we encourage that the evidence should be preserved. And if somebody is kind of faces sexual violence, for example, the first thing the person should do is to go report at the nearest police station. At that time, the evidences are clear. You could see there are bruises, you could see the bruises, and the police would record that. Then from there, you go get medical attention. Then if the police would carry out their investigation, they'll carry out their investigation, but that evidence that they put on ground is what they will use in the courts. But what we see sometimes that makes it like challenging is somebody can come and say, so and so person raped me, and you are expecting, you maybe start asking, when did this thing happen? They tell you, oh, 5 weeks ago, 3 months ago, or something like that. Some persons could wait for the bruise, everything to clear off before they go and report at the police station. They will not have that evidence. And it will now become difficult to prove some of those evidences when they get to the court. A lady is raped, for example. Of course, we know the role of the semen and some other things that it will play at the point of investigation and even in as evidence. She goes, take a bath, make up very well, look beautiful, going to the station to go and report. Don't go to the station naked, like we always say, but at least go in that state. Let them see what just happened. It's still fresh. You don't need to wait. You don't need to wait. And if you want to give description, give a vivid or clear description as much as you can. Yes, some of the things happen at night, some of them in dark corners and some other things, but you should be able to try as much as you can to recount the best of what you have in that environment. This will help to build up the evidence that will be used in court. That's one. Evidence could be a challenge. Then number two, like I talked about before, witness compromise. Witness compromise, the perpetrator has committed an offense against the state. The survivor is coming as a witness. For whatever reason, they don't show up. And if there is no witness to testify against a suspect, what happens? The judge will definitely strike out the case because there was no witness to actually say this person has committed this offense, So it's actually challenging in our environment. So people need to understand the various steps that they need to take. I know that, like I said before, because of the things they've seen with some other persons, they find it difficult wanting to go ahead. But we encourage people, let's understand the process. You are not the owner of the case. Like we see some persons going to swear affidavit that they are not interested in the case. They don't want to follow up with the case anymore. We don't need that. We need perpetrators to be punished so it can serve as deterrent to some other persons. This offenders register is there. If people are convicted and their pictures are placed in the offenders register for the public to see, nobody will want his name to be on that. But because of witnesses not coming to testify for whatever reason, you see some of these perpetrators getting off the hook and walking away. So the society need to understand some of this process. Like we always say, if you are confused about it, the first port of call should be the police station.
I want to believe also that the police station are also equipped for that kind of task anyway, but we'll leave that for another conversation. Now, I would like to draw your attention to what the UN Secretary General said in this regard as regard on a day like this. I would like to quote him. I would love you to listen. He said hospitals and other healthcare facilities should be the beacons of safety and healing for all those injured or including the survivors of sexual violence. Now, this brings us to the conversation on the state of hospitals or centers that should provide the right support for survivors or victims of sexual violence. Now, there are important services that should be provided for victims. Talk about physical support, psychological support, medical support. Would you say the hospitals or healthcare facilities are equipped with the right personnel and materials to provide the right support needed by victims of sexual violence?
Well, if I say yes, I will also say no. Yes, because some facilities have undergone the prerequisite training and they've been practicing it over time, so they are able to provide those services. However, I will say no because it has not gone round. It should be a continuous thing that should be sustained. Because like you mentioned, apart from the physical treatment that they will get at those centers, they also need the psychological support. Because many times we focus on let the offender be arrested, let the offender be prosecuted, let the offender be sentenced to jail. Yes, the offender has been sentenced to jail. The survivor would be happy that she has gotten justice, but that does not bring automatic healing to that survivor. That survivor still needs so much attention. She still needs so much support in terms of rehabilitation. That person needs to undergo psychotherapy, counseling, because the truth of the matter is some of these persons who have been victims, rather survivors, there is tendency that some other persons may also want to try their hands on them. So our facilities are not well equipped enough at the moment for that, but some are doing their best. So we need to expand training, and we also need people to volunteer their time to get this training so that they're able to render these services in a seamless manner to some of these survivors. Because we've had cases where people who are supposed to help the mental health of this survivor being the one stigmatizing, being the one taunting this survivor. And this is not a good practice. So we need to do continuous improvements, continuous training in order to help our system. But for now, our system are not fully well equipped to provide some of these services. And some survivors may not even be able to afford some of these services because of the cost implication that is in it. So much need to be done to see that our facilities can actually come up and provide these services for our volunteers and our survivors. Thank you.
All right, let's get back to the spirit of having this conversation. According to the United Nations, the essence of having a special day like this is to draw awareness to the need to eliminate sexual violence. My question to you is, how do we improve the level of public awareness when it comes to the effect of sexual violence? And how do we curtail this development in our society?
Yeah, we are doing one right away. We just need to keep talking about it. We just need to keep talking about it because where some persons kind of miss it up. How did they miss it up? The sexual violence don't just happen on its own. There are factors that are driving it. Let's take, for example, somebody is in need of a job, desperately in need of a job. And at that point, the person who is supposed to provide the job for that person sees the person as being vulnerable. And of course, what would they do? Start making some demand, making some requests. Even if that person has to compromise to because he or she wants to get that job, it's still sexual violence because that person did not do that thing at his or her right state of mind. The person was more concerned with what he or she wants to get. And if this is what you are demanding, okay, let it be the price that they will pay for it. So if we have to eliminate it, we have to look at it holistically. We have to look at it holistically. If someone is being deprived of a particular thing and the person has to go somewhere else to go and get it for a price, doesn't stop it from being valid. You that is depriving that person, you should be held accountable. You should be held liable for that particular thing that has happened. So we should stop the blame game. People need to understand that some of these perpetrators, they are not mentally fit. They shouldn't be in the society. Because if they reverse the rule, they will not take what those people are taking. So we must have a positive mindset to addressing it, not with any form of bias or sentiment, be it cultural, be it religious or whatever. Every one of us must understand that these survivors, they pass through pain, and this pain needs to be addressed. We just need to keep talking about it. Everywhere we find ourselves, we should keep talking about it. In our place of work, let's talk about it. In the religious houses, let's talk about it. In our homes, let's talk about it. Among our families, let's talk about it. Because when we also look at some of these sexual violence, they don't come from people who are distant from us. They are people who are around, family members, members of the same religious group, co-workers, they perpetuate it. So we just keep talking about it. And as we talk about it, we should also talk about the laws. And above all, let's have people that we can use as example. When persons are being used as example, when the laws are being tested on those people, it will actually serve as deterrent to some other persons. The survivors are in the society, the law enforcement agents are in the society, the judges are in the society, the medical personnel are in the society, the lawyers are in the society. Every one of us are in society, even the perpetrators are in the society. So you could see in a potential religious gathering, all the people that will make these things work, they are in that gathering. And we must keep talking about it. We must keep talking about it. We don't need to keep mute about it. And again, when we talk about issue of sex and some other things, yes, because of our religious, cultural belief, we don't want to talk about it in some places. We need to break that barrier. Talk about it everywhere. Let our children get to know about it so that they can, as they grow up, they begin to understand these things and they just grow up with it. So we don't need to keep mute. Don't say it does not concern you, you will not talk about it. No.
All right,
so we just
Dr.
need
Bright.
to talk about it.
Please permit me to turn you to a therapist or a counselor now. What would be your words of advice for victims of sexual violence globally? In a few seconds, I would like you to do that.
For victims of sexual violence, look around the circle of people around you and get someone you can confide in. Speak out. Speaking out alone has a way of healing and reducing the pressure that is warming up. Look around, there must be somebody that you can talk to. Talk to that person, and the person will not betray your trust.
Great. What a way to wrap up this conversation. On that note, thank you so much, Dr. Bright, for your thoughts and the encouragement for victims to speak out. I must thank you for your time and your commitment on Early Extinct this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. What a way to wrap up for today. We've been looking at the issue of eliminating sexual violence. It's also important for us to understand to kick this practice out of the society, it takes everybody's responsibility, families, society, organizations, private organizations, the government, when it comes to giving the right policy and implementation of the right laws. It is often said the problem is not the absence of the laws. As far as Nigeria is concerned, we have the right laws. Even globally, there are laws against the issue of sexual violence. But the question has to do with implementation. So my encouragement for everybody is let's ensure that we keep our society better, and all we can do is to ensure that we do our part to eliminate the issue of sexual violence. It can happen to anybody. Anybody can be a victim, whether man or woman. And for men who are also going through the same fate, ensure that you speak out, because it's all about seeking help and being a better person. Don't forget, this conversation continues on our social media platform at SOUQ News TV, all our social media platform. And you can also do a catch-up on our YouTube channel as regards the conversation we've just had and the ones we've had earlier. As Early Exchange will return tomorrow, getting bigger and better. I remain Femi Ayodele. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.